Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're taking a look at ATEEZ's HALA HALA Hearts Awaken Alive dance practice. So I have a feeling there's probably a performance video affiliated with this, but I'm going to look at the dance practice because I feel like I can really appreciate the content for what it is, see what the artistry is about, things of the like. I don't know if I've heard the track or not, and I did try to look. I don't know who the choreographer is. I do know with some of the tracks I really know who choreographed it, but for some of the other ones I'm not sure. So for this one, I'm not going to assume who choreographed it. I'll just take in, see what it is. Let's check it out. They changed the setting on the camera, so now it's a little bit darker, it's more full. Also a nice moment in the beginning. Okay. Oh, this was on that video I watched way back in the day about what the actual hardest choreographies were from a dancer, and I had thoughts about it, but now I get to look at this one. Okay. Great choice. And the formation shift on that. I'm honestly very impressed at the ballsiness of so many vibrations and reverb interruptions within their choreography. It's risky. I like it. Now, is this one as refined as I think it could be? No, I don't. I mean, I was saying the same thing about Say My Name. Not quite as refined, but that one was a very different pocket of concept, whereas some of the synchronicity is what helps carry that type of aesthetic. Here, I like a lot of their choices that they're making. Are they doing the same chorus? I do feel if that was more refined, it would really pop off on such a heartbeat spike of energy that I think would have really helped with this piece. That with the marches, so it's very similar to what we'd already seen. I bet this takes you out on the energy side with the amount of control that you need to have in your torso, but also having more of the power and energy coming from your back on some of these motions, and then having to drop on the freaking floor. I would need a water break just doing the warm up for what I would need to do for this. Okay. I 1000% understand why San wanted to bulk up so he could do crop more. I can really tell he tailors to that style immensely. When he does his pop-offs, probably every time I've seen him now, and since their debut, right, with Treasure, Pirate King, and Say My Name, I feel like there's those little crump elements that we do get to see in his posture. So I 1000% understand why he actively made the choice to try to refine his actual toning of his body to where he wanted to feel and actually attack a lot of the posture of crump that way. It makes total sense. Overall notes, I think I kind of covered a lot of it just in my gleaning of watching this one. I understand this one's pretty difficult because of very similar things as to why Pirate King was difficult, but there was such a refinement of synchronicity affiliated with it, which is what helped elevate the difficulty. Because remember, difficulty can be separated into a couple different facets depending on how you look at it. Some people think that synchronicity is equivalent to difficulty. Some people think complexity of movement is equated to difficulty. For me, it's I just go off of my of what I've learned and gleaned from multiple facets, as well as whenever I have received training on adjudicating difficulty, it's normally been tailored to how difficult is your, how polyrhythmic or how complex your authentic representation of the style you're choosing to justify. That equates more towards your difficulty than anything. And a lot of things you can measure synchronicity different than that. If you look at the individual members, you can see that some of them tailor to one style or one technique over others, but I really appreciate the risk taking. I kind of feel like they're taking a no holds barred approach to some of their choreography choices. Even Anjay's with Say My Name, I feel like there's a lot of moments where we get to kind of pop off and we're just going to see what happens versus they do give off a diamond in the rough aesthetic, and I'm a fan of it. I am. I do like it, and it makes me, honestly, because of marathoning this, very excited to see how they continue to utilize this style, because I feel like this is a good style for them to refine. I really feel that way. I'm kind of curious what ends up being retained as a fingerprint in the future. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it right now. Okay, but we're not there, we're in the present, and we're taking a look at Hala Hala. So, looking at this, I love that, boom, just the intensity of that. I did mention this about Say My Name, and I will just briefly talk about it here. This is a note, not a suggestion, of just this part here. That little notice that it was a bit loud and a huge interruption, so for them to have such a stark choice to look up the way that they did, it makes sense for the most part. Do I think that some of them maybe have really extroverted it and overly tensed their neck to create this full moment? Possibly, because you could have totally gotten away with just pulling from the back of the neck and only engaging about half, conserving your energy where you can, because really looking at it, there's a lot of muscle engagement of like squeezing, a lot of sprinting of your muscle contractions that are happening here, and we'll kind of cover it as we cover it. But I think figuring out something that I'm hopeful for ATEEZ is that they're figuring out ways, as they do concepts like this, that they learn ways to conserve energy in spaces where you can still justify the technique without having to go for the technique. I think it's a great way to build stamina, a great way to showcase performance. And when you have adrenaline, that really helps with that. And the fact that we're seeing these types of symptoms in dance practice is very impressive. I will tell you that. Normally I see that in live performances or just not in a dance practice, so that's very kudos to them and their energy level. And I know a lot of people have said that their performances are even wilder. I know I'm going to be getting to those eventually, some of them for sure. But having this go and just the walking, sometimes just walking is good enough. I will say this was my only, it's just more of a curiosity thing as to why we have him here and we don't have a mirror on this side. I do know we have mirrors here. It does feel a bit misplaced, being honest. And seeing the context of what was happening after this, I was hoping that it would make sense as to why we have him here. But based on what they did, I really feel like they could have made a subtly different choice, maybe having him as a different level or something of the like, maybe creating more varied levels as a frame to allow, or maybe having one of them honestly because we have 3 and 3, they could have broken center easily and had your 3 drift down and then they had your other 3 drift down. Beautiful framing, level it. Chef's kiss. So I think that's my one little note. If you guys could tell me out of curiosity, because we have 8, right? And oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. In Say My Name, I didn't even realize, I didn't even have to talk about their formations looked fine. So I think this is just one of those examples of having an odd number saves lives sometimes. There's a chance they're making a shape. Let me say that too. There's a good chance they're making that shape. And also seeing how they're choosing to kind of drape down, it really would have made a lot of sense. If they're not making a shape, it would have made a lot more sense if they had these 3 drift down to here and having them stay where they are. Because I really like the depth. I love the depth. I think they could have spaced out a little bit more there. But it just depends on what happens after. And like having this moment, that was really nice. I enjoyed that, but I felt like he didn't really have to travel as far, or we could have still had these moments in this way without having to try to attempt an abstract formation with an even number. I love that. Boom. Pop off, my guys. That's great. I love how he comes up, boom, has that little extra reverb there, and I love how they chose to hit that there. Those are little things that I'm talking about. That right there. Boom, da-da-da-da-da. That was cool. Cool, cool. Sitting through, do-do-do-do, boom, brilliant, it out. Yeah, don't. I do feel like we may be a little bit restrictive here in this chest. I think that if we, and it could be just a choreography choice, but notice that we're hitting here and then we're creating more of a, it's like a, not stagnant, but a very, my words need a word. What is this? It's not dime stop. I'd say like more ticking, I would say, yeah? Where they're hitting and he's really using that shoulder and then he's using ticking on this. But I really feel that having, maybe it's just the position that he's in. I'm not used to seeing people use the shoulder and then tick it up in that way. I'm just gonna, you know what, let's just chalk it up to just the preference of the choreography. Yeah, and we'll just move on. He's the only one that's doing that ticking with the shoulder. Everybody else is kind of rolling through it. So that's probably why he stuck out to me. So then I would say refine the overall, what type of texture are you wanting to execute? Because there's beauty in all of them, but there's even more beauty when there's a conscious attempt in trying to make sure all the textures match together and are cohesive. Because some textures don't texture well, you know, or there's some textures that are complementary and then some that are combative. So I think that there's some combativeness about some of their movement, and I know a lot of people chalk it up to it's them being individuals. There is a difference between individuality but also consciousness that you are in a group. Do you know what I mean? Here, yes, they're in a group. I feel like some things that groups do a lot of times is to make compromises for the sake of the overall aesthetic of the group, but individuality should not be one of them, because you can even have groups that are very, very clean, but you can see a sense of individuality in the posture and carriage that they choose to execute the techniques in, because the techniques are more so your bones, the muscles and the skin and all of that, like the other extra things that are part of the bones that make people human are what makes people people. And that's kind of what I'm gleaning from this too, is that I do feel that sometimes we can mistake needing to refine textures as we're eliminating individuality, because it's not the same thing. You can showcase individuality, which I have seen in all of their pieces, but I've also seen them very clean and very unrefined. Right here, this feels a very solid middle for me. It's not too clean, but it's not too messy either. I feel like this is like our baseline kind of situation that we're seeing right now. It's nice to see that bleed up, boom, right there, but notice that everybody's taking a subtly different approach in how they're bleeding up. I'm gonna assume that's more of an abstract, that's your individual choice. But how you get up into it is what helps us know that it's an individual choice. Your textures and your dynamics match. Love that, boom, boom. I love the quickness of getting into that position. That was cool. Yeah, dun dun dun, bam, bam. Having that was really nice. And it doesn't bother me at all that they're walking into their next spot, because notice that they're on tempo and they're not just walking for the sake of walking. The walk is purposeful because it's on a tempo and they're all walking with a similar demeanor. That helps. That goes back to my original point. They're walking with the same demeanor or the same weight distribution of how they're carrying each step. That kind of stuff helps me appreciate their individuality and their transitions. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. This part right here is super cool. We're gonna look at that real quick. Boom, doo-doo, doo-doo. And they end up taking it a little bit further than normally people see them do. Normally you would have people go boom, doo-doo, doo-doo, move on. They go boom, doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. I think they keep going, but I stopped right before that. Yeah, like they did it just a couple more times than you normally see people do it. Yeah, boom, doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. Now they did an extra two. That really brings extra fatigue on the body. And notice we're about almost a minute in. That's a hard ask to ask people to do, even though we've already seen some kind of vibrationary interruptions throughout the beginning. But this is nice, da-da-da-da-da. That was a nice moment, I like that. But just Definitely cleaner on the arms here, especially with the stylistic arms. Normally they struggle with having clean range in their stylistic arms, especially if you do with tutting. That's not really tutting, but you kind of catch my drift. So I would say there's an improvement there, but I would say the torso now is the next thing that we can focus on, is making sure everybody's utilizing the torso in a similar way that really helps the build be built. Because, I mean, if you want to have a strong foundation, and treat all of them like bricks of a strong foundation. If one brick is not put in place correctly, or they're not shaping the position, they're not positioning them in the right place and putting the correct amount of cement, or, you know, that kind of connection that you need between your bricks, then they're going to crumble, or they're going to kind of break off, right? And so that's what you want to avoid when it comes to formations and content, is you want your content or your build outs or your add-ons or your repels or your cannons or anything like that, you want them to have really strong connections between your individual bricks or your individual people, because by having them all connected, it's going to make it stronger and more justifiable. That's my overall thing that I'm noticing here. So all that to say, your torso is one of those really core fundamentals. If you don't use your torso, it's a lot harder to make your extremities have depth, or have your movement have depth. The rock and the bounce is the reason why grooves come from the torso. You know, I didn't say it. The community said it. Now this concept, this section right here, I really like the change of texture and a change of groove. My biggest note, and I feel like people may have already touched on this before, this is not refined as much as I really think it could be in comparison to some of the techniques that they were very clean doing earlier in the first verse are harder to clean than this section. Hence why I'm making this a point. Seeing this groove, we're gonna actually like talk through the groove because we see it twice. Notice with our feature in the center, he really takes an extroverted approach with his rock forward, and everybody else just kind of sets it up. Then notice where the head direction is. That's a little thing. Some people look down. Some people are not even touching their head. Some people are over stylizing the hands. Some are placing it up at the top. People are not touching. Some are looking front. So if you cleaned up arm place, I'm going to tell you how to make this everybody on the same page. Here's what I would tell them if I was in this position with them. Take your hand, clarify where your hand goes, and actually verbalize where you want your hand to go. From here, where do you want your head? Regardless if you're a feature or not. For the sake of the cleanliness of the group, where would you want your head? And then the feature can kind of placate and do what they need to do to modify. Then from there, with your feet, notice with their feet, kind of feels like we didn't have that conversation. Are we we're stepping? Where's our weight? Are we going right, left, right? Are we interchanging between the two? How is our torso involving ourselves in this position? So do you understand, like, it's very tedious to kind of itemize all of the different movements, but those types of things really help in the long run to where everybody's on the same page and you have a lot less issues on refinement. So that's just my overall like huge note about this section, is that if I don't know if they took the time or not, there's always quick turnarounds on these things too. I'm being very empathetic to that. If they clarified on this hand placement, head placement, and leg weight distribution, this would be 1,000 times cleaner. I'm telling you that right now. Also notice some of them are really isolating that chest, some are really using the whole body, some are using the chest. That would be another thing I would add to that list. Yeah, boom, boom, they hit and then they kind of melt through from here. Because right there, boom, do, 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 and they bring it up. Really nice in personality and energy. That part right there, you notice there's that little beat, that bass that dropped, and they dropped too. Yeah, boom and boom. Did you see? I love that they actually dropped to match the depth of how that bass was happening down below. A lot of times it's really hard to catch really low basses without getting really low or doing something to kind of one up yourself and dropping lower. You can only melt into the floor so many times, you know what I mean? And sometimes for me, because I have a more alto voice, soprano alto voice, it does not hang out in the baritone way whatsoever. So I can't empathize with this at all. So it's hard for me to have confidence in some of my bass choices, purely from the fact that I am a lady with a higher range voice. So when I hear a bass, for me, I want to feel more grounded, and I like making some choices, but sometimes I have a little bit of insecurity because I can't empathize with the bass because I can't make it myself. That's just my overall like confession. So I'm very impressed at the fact that I could see, even though is it refined, not as much, but it's refined enough for me to appreciate the musicality choices, and we can't discredit that. Them by themselves, they're doing a really good job. But remember, it's ATEEZ, a group. This isn't a solo promotion, right? Just like if you had a soloist with your backup dancers, the backup dancer should be complimenting your soloist. You would have the same expectations. Like I have the same expectations of them like I would if it was a soloist with their backups. The exact same. Everyone should be held to the same standard, especially in a group, regardless of where you are, because it's a group. It's ATEEZ, right? I like that. Boom, they caught it. Really cool choice. Boom, boom, boom. That was the cleanest triple hit that they've done this entire time. That was great. The marches. I don't mind those at all because they were all on the same page. So I appreciated the choreographic choice. That's a really big thing too. If you have a group, if they refine it and they have it very clean, it helps me appreciate the choice, and it helps me not, it doesn't make me think, oh, they should have done this, oh, they should have done this, you know, or it's just, it would help me actually refine myself and be able to take a look at the actual construct of the choreography and the artistry of it. And that's, and those are really great places to be. They're still doing a very good job. We cannot discredit that. Here's the thing. They are doing a style that at this time was not being done often. So when you're a pioneer and you're a trendsetter in that regard, regardless of your popularity, the fact that you're doing it is harder, especially when you're not coming from a trend-setting entertainment agency. You are fighting an uphill battle, so there is more grit required of you to persevere through because you don't have some of the things that other groups could potentially around your debut, you know, time. They may have other concessions because of their circumstances. We're not going to sit here and project those things, but I'm saying we can't discredit those things. And that's why I would say they still need to be very proud of this, because this doesn't look like, oh, they come from a small agency. They look like a group, a strong group. I just feel like this feels more like a dance practice, which is what it is. It's a dance practice. This isn't a live performance on stage. If that was a live performance on stage, we'd be having a different refined conversation. But because it's a dance practice, you're allowed to have more forgiveness in the track that you're watching. That part was nice, but it goes back to if they clarified what they were doing with their hand in the beginning, they could clarify it here, really tie those together brilliantly. That was sick. That little boom, boom. The bass on this track's really cool. Pulling it down, which is really nice. Boom, boom, doo, doo, doo. That was great. They build the energy pretty well here, like with a lot of the sporadically like wind ribbony aesthetic of their texture, which I really like. It's cool. That was sick. You see that? He went boom. I caught that 4 people back. And even though there's other people in line with him, I caught immediately who I was supposed to watch because of how he executed that. That was sick. I love this. It's simple but effective, having a simple build out. But we do notice because they have 8 people, in order to make it symmetrical, we have 1 person sacrifice in the back. But there's a good chance he's going to be featured next, right? Yeah, that boom, boom, boom. God, risky business reverbing like this, but I like it every time they do it. And then they hit here. Yeah. That was more of an individual, make your kind of your own choice, but it goes back to the point I've already made, so I won't beat a dead horse on it. You know, of if you want individuality, you need to be able to justify whenever you do things in unison. That needs to showcase synchronicity. So I know that when you make a conscious choice to be more individualized, it is more there's more grace built in, or it helps me understand that you're competent in other factors. So it makes sense why you made that choice to be more individualized. I like that pull out. That was cool. You notice they went from low to high. Really great usage of levels and staging and spacing. That was great. I just drank my drink while I was supposed to say something there, but I like that. But really great in the wordplay. Yeah, this whole energy is really nice. That notice that they kind of swiveled on those feet to really create that moment of swiveling it and framing it more towards the outside. That was cool. Right there into the do-do-do-do-do-do. Now I will make this note because we have been seeing a lot of this type of vibration more towards like going towards the inside and very internal. I would want to see it more extroverted, more extroverted in their framing versus keeping it very internal here. Because we've already seen about 2 to 3 times already in how they're choosing this. This is an easier way to do your vibration for a longer extension of time. But even within repeated techniques that are difficult, you can still refine them or innovate them enough to where even a different change of angle can really spark and showcase a different justification of the timbre you choose to hit. Outside, da da na. Great connection between your feature. Now that's a really good way. We have that ch ch ch. And they're all making different choices. Great here because everyone's making the same choice on range of how they're hitting it in their own way. That's an appropriate example of what I've mentioned before. And up through. God, that section. This is the cleanest section of the whole thing. This thing is sick. Let's look at it. Yeah. This made me appreciate their individuality because of how freaking in sync they were coming out of it. And this is a really tricky section to do well because if you think about it, they're having these individualized moments, but their dynamics are the ones that are in sync with each other because they're trying to be on the same page on that. But notice there's like 1 or 2 moves that they're all doing at the same time, but then they break out in a more individualized, but it's still dynamically in tune with each other. That's really hard to do on a timing front for yourself. Not a single person is matching the same timing in the same direction at any given time here. And that's what makes it captivating. This is probably one of the most captivating sections that they have shown in their most recent work that I have reacted to at this point in time. Because I hadn't even seen their new stuff yet. I've only seen pre-debut and like 3 of their other stuff. So overall, no, I really love that moment. That moment was freaking sick. Yeah, it really feels the energy on this section. Yeah, and notice that do-do-do-do. Once again, we see the same exact thing. So it's still bless the knees on that though. It's still pretty tricky to try to hit that. Let's take appreciation for the bass that we hit before that sound. Da 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 da. Now notice some of them had more of this breakout moment, and then they went and it dropped a lot lower. I love this choice so much. However, the levels on this, the reason why it's hard for me to catch the first bass without really having to pay attention to the bass, I know that's what they're going for, but it's because I do see the feature in the center. He's really the only one that's kind of... Everyone's supposed to react to him, but only see a couple people like really effectively reacting to him hitting that bass. So whenever we break down, it does feels a little bit more muddled on the first bass. So it's harder for me to appreciate the lower bass because I'm still trying to digest what was happening on that first bass. So that's why it's important to make sure if you're going to commit, make sure everybody's committing or it's very clear who you need involved and what sound. So whenever everybody is involved in the next sound, it's very clear and concise, just like the literal section that we saw right before this. They can do it because we literally just saw it. That was great. I love that too. And they switched it up a little bit more. Really carried it more diagonally. So that was a cool choice. Right there. Back to the marches. I'm still a fan of how they hit the basses. It's cool. It's cool. But my notes still remain the same. That swing, swing. It went boom, boom, and swing, swing. And they did isolate it. And I do feel like because some of their natural fingerprints or how they choose to hold their posture naturally is not really using their torso, my suggestion would have been for that part where they hit it and swing, if they use the legato in their groove on that, it would have showed an enhancement of their overall posture integration in the track. Because I've already mentioned it before, they have a bit of a stiffness of their torso, but that's what comes with the territory sometimes when you are somebody who let's say like, I know some of them only started training in dance whenever they were training to be in ATEEZ. So that I know. I don't know about all of them, and I don't know how many of them were pro dancers or this, that, or the other. But when you try to figure out more of this aesthetic, for me, I had to really die to my studio self. I was already trained in a different muscle memory before I really dived into the realm of understanding connection and more of that grungy, grimy, grounded type of grooves where you can really sink into it. And because of the type of basses they have in this, because they can hit it in their shoulder, but notice we didn't really feel it in the torso as much, and I feel like that would have helped create depth in the overall content. And so that's why I say that. And that's something that I'm going to be honest, I feel like is going to naturally change the more we see them figure out what concepts or niches within the content that they're given, it's going to feel the most like them. Do you know what I mean? Because we were seeing a huge swing of just kind of gleaning from them in some of their, we have different choreographers for a lot of their tracks, and I think all of them are good for different reasons. But all of them can also have their setbacks. That's what naturally happens when you work with people, is there's going to be people who have pros and they will have cons. I have pros and cons about how I structure my videos, how I choreograph routines, how I perform myself, those types of concessions, how I collaborate. I have the same issues, not issues, but like I have the same things for myself, which is why I can empathize with what I'm saying, So all that to say, noticing that choice, I really feel like if they did that there, yeah, they go hala hala. I know that's a choreographic change, but that was just a suggestion because of what I had already seen from their pre-debut. If they swung it down, that would have helped carry this a little bit heavier, and it would have helped that groove a little bit more, I think. There, I did notice my front guy. He did, I think he overshot when he dropped down, so he ended up having to drop back a little bit. Notice that? So he had to drop down, drop a little back, because whenever he dropped, he wanted to propel forward, he counterbalanced it. So it was a very smart professional choice he made there. And they get to kind of do their own thing. It is fun, I do repeat. I appreciate that, but a little explosion of energy, that was nice. That kick there, they all hit with their hands, he hit with the foot. Great. That was a really great example. I love it. That was a great collaborative moment between your feature and everybody else. That was great. Yeah, that part's fine. This part's fine. Also there too, some of them are choosing to use that head ISO, which I know they can all do a freaking head isolation because I saw it in Pirate King and I was like, what the crap? Why are we seeing a head isolation variation of a legato like this hanging out in a debut track? You know what I'm saying? And I still stand by everything I said in Pirate King. And so when I see it, it is interesting that we're having discrepancies with that, even though we had just seen something similar to that a couple tracks ago, right? Some of them are choosing to dig more in the shoulders and some are really choosing to grime it out. That's just a clarification thing because they can do both very well. You just have to decide which one are we vibing with on the type of track it is. That's where it's important. That's where it's important to have a strong team. I do feel like they have a really good team outside of them, but also like that each team has a different kind of key player that comes with it. For me, I know that I have a very analytical approach to stuff. So how I clean routines is from I really look at it like I do have feelings towards my students. Like I love my students and I want them to grow and succeed, but also I have a job to do and part of it is cleaning, and I have to be very professionally cordial and frank, where I'm like, okay guys, this is not where it needs to be. Here's why, here's how we can fix it. I'm a troubleshooter and a problem solver and an auditor at heart. So that's why I really like doing these types of analysis, which is maybe something that you guys are also picking up on as well. I love finding areas that are freaking sick, hold on to it with all your might, but even then you can still make it better in these ways because I empathize with that. And then there's other things that aren't as refined that make me so happy, like a proud soccer mom, when I see that get fixed later on in their journey, because these are humans. They're humans at the end of the day. Not only humans, they're humans that have feelings. You know what I mean? They have stamina. They have other factors that play in to the fact that they're not going to be perfect. I know that. Just like their choreographers are not going to be perfect. No one is perfect under the sun. You will always find something off that is not going to be in time with each other. But it is still impressive that you can still see the choreography and the intention behind this, regardless of some of the other drawbacks that you may see within a track. The energy here is really nice. I do like the energy. Just some tiny clarification would do wonders for that section. That was great. Everybody had their own choice, but they all threw it at the same time. Great choice. I love it. You just threw it. I love that. That's great energy there. Now, I said it's the first time. I know, I totally understand. He's really placating and I can really tell that he's has a natural draw to Crump because how he's carrying his pocket of energy very much caters to that. So, and I have seen him. I've seen like that right there. Very, very nice. It's nice to have a really strong core, and how he's choosing to drop that down into the floor. Really strong and heavy. So fun. Yeah. And it's honestly, they're doing a pretty good enough job to where they can have a lot of these sporadic texture choices and then smooth it out for a second, and then they pop right back into it. That's definitely a ATEEZ fingerprint out of everything that I've noticed, regardless of the track it is. Those are the best moments that they do. Are there interruptions of textures for like a 0.5 seconds and then right back into it. Super dope. Yeah. Da-da, da-da, hala, hala. Having somebody in the back pop it off. That was nice. Energy. Yes. And they all come down. I love that. He goes, he finishes there, and we're done. So this is cool. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really liked a lot of those. I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for refinement that could really shoot this off to the next level. Which I have a feeling that's naturally going to happen because this is a dance practice, and I think that's okay. Because I know a lot of times with dance practices, they now have this glorification of they must be in sync, they must be this gorgeous, they must be a second music video, right? But it's just choreo, right? So I think I find the joy sometimes in the one takes and in the, it's okay if there's a mistake, if there's a little slip up, things of that nature, just organic interactions. I am totally fine with those, and I enjoy those sometimes because it does remind you they are human, and it helps you enjoy the fact of how much hard work they give. I think that's important. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I was helpful in some way. I'm having a freaking blast diving through ATEEZ and seeing just their different ebbs and flows of the concepts that they're choosing to pursue depending on the era. I think it's really fun, and I do know in the more recent years there's a couple of their tracks that I think I've heard a lot. I think there's one of them actually that I think I know really, really well, but I'll just have to, and when I encounter, I'll see if it's the track I think it is, because I'm purposely not listening or watching these until we do these analysis for the sake of me getting a genuine understanding or a genuine reaction to these. But yeah, I am really looking forward to some of these tracks in the future for sure. If you want to see more ATEEZ, XG17, K-pop, dance content in general, I love looking at dance, analyzing it, and giving feedback to it, because I just find a lot of joy in things that bring me joy, which is dance. So if you want to see more of that, I have it all over YouTube, but if you want to see it all early, I have it on Patreon, just like this video was on Patreon way before it made its way to YouTube. So if that's something that is inquisitive to you, you can go check it out there. I'll be there hanging out, but if you want to hang out on YouTube, I'll be here hanging out all the same. I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye!